Welcome to this last video in this course about intercultural competencies and ICT on online environments. And in this last section, I will show you some examples of practice of how I try to work with intercultural competencies in my own courses. I teach different courses at the distance mode in the graduate and postgraduate levels. And one of the important things I would like to say before going further is that it is our learners in online environments who are the biggest potential for the development of intercultural competencies, because they are usually adult learners with very interesting backgrounds and strong motivation about taking the course. So we have to build upon those profiles and those opportunities to create a community and to develop the intercultural competencies. None of the examples that I will show have the development of any particular intercultural competencies as a focus. I will show you examples of my own courses which are about different things, about community development, or about project design, or about participatory action, but they are not, I try to work intercultural competencies as a cross-curricular skill. And I think this would be the case for most of you. So I will start with the forums in the online courses for interaction as the very basic form or example of practice for developing intercultural competencies, because students have to know each other, have to interact, and this is the space we have in our courses for promoting that in an easy manner. So I use the forums and I ask the students, I introduce myself and I ask them to introduce each other and try to be well, respectful in my way of approaching them, and I expect them and I try them to be also respectful with the others, to be curious about who their colleagues are, because as I said before, we have very interesting students in our courses with very interesting and big backgrounds. And they also develop they have to read others' contributions. It's not listening, but reading most of the times. And I think this is a very good starting point for developing the intercultural competencies. But I also use the forums for compulsory or voluntary assignments that the students have to undertake for passing the course. And I will show you two examples. In one case, in a master course, they have to analyze a case study, and instead of sending to me the complete analysis, they share and comment online in the forum. And there they have to read others' contributions, they have to build and comment others' contributions, sometimes they confront opinions because they don't share the same view. And I think that's also another way of developing those intercultural competencies. A second case, it's also in a master course, the students have to create a collaborative glossary of the main terms of the course. So first they have to decide which are the key terms or main concepts in the course, and they have to decide on the list, and then they have to decide on the sources of information, and they have to reach together to a glossary created collaboratively. And here they have to, of course, interact with others, confront perspectives. So these are other competencies relevant for the intercultural competencies framework. Another, oh, sorry, I missed this. This is, I have collected this from the first module about the intercultural competencies framework, And you see that with this type of activities developed in the forum, which is the easiest tool we have on hand in our online courses, they develop the intercultural competencies of knowing, interacting, and reflecting. So I try to push that that competencies framework with these activities as a cross or transversal skill, because the focus, of course, of the activity is the glossary in itself. They learn about the course, creating the glossary, but at the same time they develop these other soft skills about working together, contrasting, reading, deciding, and reaching consensus. Another example, and this one is in a graduate course, which has more students than the postgraduate course. Our graduate courses may have hundreds of students at UNED. And what I ask them is to reflect about the real case. It's, the course is about community development. So I choose a real case, a documented real case, somehow polemic. And in the last one is about a project, a community development project around graffitis. With graffitis is something polemic because it leads to problems in the community sometimes. It's not well perceived by adults. So it was a project that tried to reach all the perspectives and to do something positive that could fulfill all the demands from the community, from the young people, from the adults, from all the community. So I showed this case to the students, and they have to analyze this case. And here the competencies they have to develop is to read and to understand the different perspectives, to use the critical analysis, and I also ask them to look and see their own contexts, which are around Spain in this case, try to find if there are similar things, which are the demands there around similar topics, and finally I ask them to reflect about the process of developing the analysis itself. What difficulties they encounter, and in this section of the assignment, many of them say that they had to confront their own view about the topic. Sometimes they had also prejudices, so they learn a different perspective about the case. And this was also the objective regarding intercultural competencies. Another example from my own practice is that I try to introduce some flexibility within this more structured context that online courses are, but I try to introduce some flexibility. Flexibility in the election of the way of doing the activities or the topics they want to work about. And for instance, in a master course, I give the students the choice to work individually or in groups. I try to push them to work in groups because I think it's more enriching. The interaction, the confrontation, it's richer, but I understand it can be difficult for some of our students, so it's elective. But also, and this is, I do it with all of them, they choose the topic. For instance, in a course about social project design that I teach, they have to decide everything, the context, the problem or the situation they want to deal with in the project. So it comes directly from their interests, that increases their motivation. Sometimes it has a real impact in their context because they finally can do some changes in their context. It implies the critical reflection, analysis of the real context. So with this flexibility, I try to work the intercultural competencies as well. But as I said before, flexibility in the online environment, also in any other institutional environment, is a matter of degree. You sometimes can be more or less flexible, and of course I'm very structured in all parts of the courses in these online courses. Another very interesting thing that I have introduced also in a master course is the peer assessment. So beyond peer work or collaborative learning, I ask the students to assess each other's projects, in this case, final projects. And this confronts them to accept the other colleagues' critique, which I try to it to be constructive critique about their project, but they have to communicate their analysis or their comments to their colleagues also, so they have to interact in that way with other students, and they have to really, it's a different way of collaboration, but I think it's very rich for the learning process on the topic, but also for the intercultural competences. And finally, last example I would like to show you is the use of that we have introduced also in the master course, is where we usually innovate more in our master courses, is the use of software for deliberation and participatory processes. We have tried with two. One, we used it during 2 years, and now we are moving this year. We didn't start yet to another one, and you have the references here. They are software outside the learning management system we use, that it's specifically designed for promoting group discussion, participatory democracy or deliberation, and it places the students in a real process of deciding, confronting, reaching consensus. So it's another way of developing the intercultural competences. So, as a summary, to summarize, I have bring back here the intercultural competencies framework from Bennett, from the module 1, and please have a look now the type of competencies: curiosity, flexibility, motivation, open-mindedness, on the affective domain, about behavioral skill, relationship, listening, problem solving, empathy, information gathering, and in the cognitive domain, self-awareness, cultural knowledge, or interaction. Now think on the examples I have put, or on the methodological guidelines I have given, and about the possibility of developing these competencies in your online courses or environments. Well, my reply is that, yeah, I try to work this, and sometimes I may focus more on the problem solving or on the opening their minds, but on the overall, if you have this framework in your head that these soft skills have to be developed with your students, it's possible to do that with your online courses. And this is my final slide, and it's your turn. It appeals to you. How would you teach the intercultural competencies in your own contexts? Which competencies would you work about, and with whom? Which is your context? Who are your learners? And which methodological guidelines or resources or ICT tools would you use for this? These final questions are, to me, the most important at this point and in the course as a whole. I would like you to make these questions to yourself and to share your comments and your views and your ideas, because the potential and the possibilities are thousands, depending on the context where you are. So please, I encourage you to think about this and to share your ideas and your proposals and your questions in the course. Thank you for your attention. It's a pleasure to share all my perspectives with you in this course, and I hope I can read you in the course and get your input also. Thank you.